Okay, so today I'm going to work on lesson 13. I covered this earlier because one of you asked about wanting to do randomized patterns, and so I talked about symbols, and that's what this lesson is about. So it should go very quickly. It's a very easy lesson. So that's one thing. We'll work on that today and tomorrow a little bit. In addition to that, you may note on this week in class that I have made lesson 14 optional. So you do not have to do that. If you want to do it, be my guest. I will talk about it. It's integrating Illustrator with other Adobe applications. So for example, if you want to incorporate a Photoshop file with Illustrator, how to do that, it's very simple. And I've talked about that briefly too, when you place or import raster images. And that by default, they are linked. And if you want them embedded, then you have to uncheck that as you do that. So that's pretty straightforward. I also want to make note that this is our last week. So all lessons and assignments are due by the end of the week so that I can, complete the grading and get that turned in. One other thing, and I'm forgetting. That'll come to me later. Oh, well. So what I wanted to do today is this will probably be a very quick demonstration. We're going to cover this silly t-shirt design. Not very interesting, to be perfectly honest, but it demonstrates one way of using symbols. Okay, so a little bit about symbols. This right here, the one with the little club symbol, is the symbol panel. And you'll notice that there are a few that are in the library by default. They've added a few because this is the final version of this exercise. In addition to that, and I believe I talked about that before, there are tons of symbols in the symbol libraries, and we're going to use one of those today. Okay. This little icon here if you want to place an instance of a symbol, you really don't need some of these. So for example, if I selected this one and I collect that, notice that it placed an instance of it. That's one way of doing it. The other way of doing it is just click and drag, and there you place an instance of the symbol. Okay. This one will break the link to the symbol, and I will show you why that's important in a minute. The next one, okay, is under symbol options. Okay, do you want to make this a static symbol or a dynamic symbol? Okay, and you don't need to worry about whether it's a movie clip or not, that sort of thing. But right now, by default, it's a static symbol, different types of symbols. If you want to create a new symbol, and that's also very easy. I do that, again, a little differently in the book, and this is if you want to delete a symbol. Okay, so that's what these are for. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to the start file, which is a blank t-shirt, and they have some items over here in samples for us to use. Now, all of these items can be turned into symbols as well, if you wish. Symbols are nothing more than little illustrations. They can include gradients, they can include patterns, they can include just about everything. Okay? So, these additional items that they've provided us in this lesson can be added. So what they want us to do is we're going to use a symbol that's in one of our symbol libraries, which is a little kind of guitar, ukulele, something like that. It's under Tiki. And it is the little, where is it? There's the guitar right here. So if you click there, it's been added to our library. So I can close that. Like I say, you might want to really consider using that and thinking about it. Those in some of your illustrations, and to create your own, especially if you reuse or you use items frequently, to build a library of symbols is really helpful. So I'm going to go ahead and just drag this out so you can see what it looks like. There you have it. Okay. And if you want to make a copy of it, you can. You can do that just like you would any other time. You can hold down the Option key and click and drag, and that makes a copy of it. And now I can flip this if I want. So that's what we're going to do with this particular lesson. So instead of rotate, I'm going to use reflect. And just about the center, I'm going to go ahead and Option click on it. And I want it to flip vertically. So let's look at preview. There we go. So now we have two of them. The other thing that's important to note is to look at layers as I'm doing this. And you'll notice that each of the guitars at the moment, because I included a single instance of them, are on their own layers. Okay. But in the future, when you use the sprayer, then that isn't necessarily the case. Now, let's say I wanted to edit one of these, and I wanted to, instead of a blue cover, I wanted brown. So to do that, you need to bring it up. And I'm going to double click on the symbol icon and notice how that isolates it. Now I can zoom in and I'm going to select, I don't know if this is a group or not. I think it is. It might be a group. So I'm going to use the group selection tool. Hold on here. I want to select, there you go, that part of it. And that would be another thing to consider, that when you're turning elements into a symbol, that you group them first. I'll go ahead and I'll bring up a little library here. And I'm going to make this kind of a tan color, right? Now, as soon as I go outside of this, and you'll notice that the icon up here, it's like a little gear, a corner of a gear. If you look at that and we go outside of it, and we go back to our illustration, watch what's happened. Even though I changed it in the library, it affects all of those elements that have been used. So that can be a good thing, it can be a bad thing. If you want to update or refine the symbols that you've already used, then let's say you've created flowers or weeds or something like that, and you've created hundreds of them. You don't want to have to select them individually to change each one. You just have to change the symbol, edit the symbol, and it will automatically update all of them on the screen on the fly. Okay, so that's where we have that. Now, a couple of other things. Let's go ahead and let's create some symbols, and I want to show you how to do that. Now, I can take these notes and I can either group them together or I can use them individually as symbols. And they will function slightly differently. So I'm going to go ahead and pull this symbol library off so I can see my illustration here. And I'm just going to take, and I'm going to click on this and I'm going to drag it in here. And there you go. We'll call it note. Note 1. And that's what it's going to be. We'll make it dynamic, for whatever reason. Okay. And then I'll take the other one, and I'll do the same thing. I'll take it. One. There you go. And I'll drag it in here. And we'll make it a new one. We'll name it Note 2. So they can be named. Now, if you don't use many of them, it's not that critical. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to take two of these, like so, and I'm going to group them together. And I don't remember whether or not the book does this, but I'm just going to turn them into a group. And now that they're a group, okay. I should have done that before. Anyway, let me take this because this has been turned into a symbol, and I'm going to take it and I'm going to break it from the symbol. There we go. Because those have been turned into symbols. And I'm going to take this one and I'm going to break it from being a symbol. So you can't take symbols that are already symbols and turn them into symbols again. So now these have been broken, and I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to group them.
Professor, do you mind switching the interpreters?
Yeah, sure. Hold on.
Okay.
Let's see. There we go. Okay. Okay, so now what I can do is I can take this new group. I don't want that. So you can see that this is a group. If I just take the selection tool. I thought I grouped these. Let me make sure that they are grouped. There we go, there's my group. I'll go ahead and I'll select them. Come on, come on, come on. My apologies. Let's go back here. I'm going to go to View. I want to say Hide, Show Edges. No, they should be showing up. So let me take them both. And let's just drag them in here. Whoa, I didn't want to do that. Cancel. Let's do that again. There we go, there's a group symbol. So I just take that and drag it in here. And again, I'll just go ahead and I'll make it dynamic and I'll make it notes. Okay. So I'll bring in some of the other elements from the other part of the illustration, and we'll come back to these. And you can see that I have note 1, note 2, and I have notes inside my symbol panel. If I come back to the samples here, we can go ahead and we can add some of these elements. For example, I can add the text. And a way that you can switch from one file to another, and this would be true for Photoshop as well, is that I can click on the text, and this is editable text, and if I move it up here to the tab, and then I bring it down, notice that I've added it, and it's not visible, is it? Because it's black text. But also, you want to take note and notice where it is, okay, on the layers, and it should be at the very top. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to select the text, and let's turn it into white text. So I'll select it all, select all. And so instead of black, we'll just make it white so we can see what we're doing here. Okie doke. So let me do that again to show you with the amplifier, how to bring that in. So I'm going to go back over to sample 1, and I'm going to take the amplifier here. And this has already been grouped. This is also sort of a good use of the perspective tool that we talked about the other day. So I'm going to click and drag it up here onto the tab. And then when this illustration becomes visible, I just pop it in like so. Now I can go ahead and reduce the size of it, like so. And you'll notice that it sits on the top of the guitars. Well, in our layers lesson, I explained that you can bring in everything you do on top of the others. So what I can do now is I can take the sign text. Let's go ahead and take that. So let's take the amplifier. And I'm going to bring it on in here. And I'm going to put it below, there you go, the guitars. So I've just, realigned it is all. And let's move it over just a little bit. We can resize it again. So now I want to demonstrate how to use these notes that we made. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and bring that up like so. Now, they can be brought out individually. So if I want a note like so, I can do that. If I want a note like so, I can do that. If I want this one, I can also bring this out like so individually. Now, notice that these, they went from a light gray and they combined as one. So if I wanted to edit that, again, I'll repeat this again. I'm going to double click in here. I'm going to select this one. And instead of that medium gray, I'm going to make it, just for the heck of it, let's go ahead and make it, let's make it a lighter gray. That's kind of a pattern. Well, that's kind of cool. Well, I'm going to leave it there, just for the heck of it, just so you can see what happens here. So I'm clearly not following the textbook exactly, but that's okay. Then I come back. Come on, let's go ahead and let's drag that out. Made it invisible because I changed that one and I guess I need to change it again. So let me go back. That's already there. So I'm going to go back and change it again. I'm going to change it to select this and make it white just for the heck of it because it's too invisible. I thought maybe I was being clever and I wasn't. There you go. So now notice that these guys that I had grouped together are automatically edited. If you want to delete them, you just select them and delete them. And when you look under the layers panel, you can see that each of these notes that I've added, okay, are on their own layer. But now here's the gotcha. When you use the sprayer, so let's say, for example, I want to select this note right here. And I use the symbol sprayer. Watch what happens. That I can go ahead and I can control the size of the brush by hitting the left or the right bracket key. Those are the keys to the right of the P key. And like so. And if I click like this, and if I want multiples. But now notice that because as I've done this, that I clicked 3 separate times, but this is all one grouping. So if I look at the layers panel, you can see at the top that this has been added. And if I turn that group off, that when you use the sprayer, all of these are on a single layer, okay, above or below everything else. So if I wanted to take just a section of these and make them below, I can't do that by using this method. I would have to go back in and I would have to edit parts of them, which you can. Okay, so let me try that again. Let me select this group, and you can see that the whole group is selected. And when I delete, they all go away. Another thing that you can do, though, is I could select this again. And if you just click the sprayer, and you just click once, boom, a quick, boom, click once. But again, every time I use the sprayer, it adds to that selection. So that's not exactly what I want to do. Okay. Instead, I want to go ahead and I want to drag these out individually. Okay, to create my illustration. And then when I come back here, I can go ahead and, because they are on their own layers, I can individually, modify these and change them and move them around. So that gives me a little bit more freedom. But as I mentioned the other day, let's try this. I'm going to go ahead and create a new artboard for you, just to show you what happens. Let's go ahead and go into artboards. Zoom out. Not that much. And I'm going to create a brand new artboard here. Okay, let's go out of here. Let's zoom in a bit. Let's see what we're doing. So as an example, when you use the sprayer, these are all the things that you can do with the sprayer. And I touched on this the other day. It's worthwhile doing again. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to tear off all the sprayers so you can see all the options that are available for you when you use it. And I'll come back to my, let's close that. Where did it go? It went away. Let me go to Window, and let's bring up symbols and make sure that that's back up. There you go. That went away. So I'll go ahead and I'll select an individual note. And I'm going to make the brush a little bit bigger. And I'm going to start to spray, like so. And again, if you continue just to hold down the mouse, notice how it just continues to build up and build up all of these notes. Now, if you want to, this is a somewhat randomized approach. So instead, if you want to change the direction of them or the position of them a little bit relative to one another, you select this tool and it allows you to click and drag. Notice that I can reposition these just a little bit. Not a lot, but you know, I can randomize it just a little bit. It's allowing me to move these about. So that's what that allows you to do. This one is the scruncher. So if I want them to be closer together, you click and you hold down. Notice how they're within the range of the brush, they're getting a little bit closer together. There you go, especially here. See how they're getting closer? If you hold down the Option key and you click, it's pushing them apart. Okay, so that's what the scruncher does. This one, the sizer tool, allows me to vary the size of them within this group. So if I wanted some maybe in the foreground to be larger or smaller, it makes them smaller by default when you click on it. If I hold down the Option key and I click, whoops, did I write the right one? No, I'm sorry, I clicked the wrong one. There we go. So when I click on it, notice that it's making them larger. There we go. So if I come back here and I just click and I hold down the mouse, it's making this group larger. And if I hold down the Option key and I click, it's making those within that group smaller, bigger, smaller. So the next one allows us to rotate a little bit. So if I want to come in here and I want to change the rotation of some of my notes, I could do that. So if they have a direction, you can do that. And again, that's all contained within the size of the brush that I'm using. And then this one here should be the stainer tool. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to click on fill color. And let's make it red just for the heck of it. And now when I click in here, notice how it's staining them, that gray with a little bit of red. And again, that's all within the brush. And then the last one that I want to touch on here is the screener, and that will make it transparent. And again, the more you hold on it, on the mouse, the more transparent they will become. And likewise with the stainer. And if you want to do the opposite, you just hold down the Option key and it will bring them back to their full opacity or their full size or their full whatever. But again, note that they are all contained within this group. And if we look at the layers panel, it is this entire group that we have here. They're individual elements, but they're contained within a larger group. Okay. Now, just about anything, as I said, can be turned into a symbol. So for example, some of the samples that they had over here, let's go ahead and let's take the guitar pick. So this is already it's not a group. I thought it was. I'm going to go ahead and turn it into a group. And I'm going to take that group and I'm going to bring it into our illustration here and drag it down. So if you were working for a company and they were creating a corporate identity and they wanted to, have elements or, products that they sell that help them market their product, and you want use those items frequently, then this would be something like this would be a good one. So here's the dynamic symbol. Let's go ahead and we'll add that, and we'll call it pick. And there you go, it's been added. So this behaves just like all the rest. Okie doke. I guess the other one would be too. Let's go ahead and try that one. Here's this guitar. Now I have not grouped this yet. And again, because if you're not careful, you can accidentally pick, just individual elements and move them. And I want this to behave as a single unit. So I'm going to use the lasso tool, and I'm going to select the guitar itself. There we go. Now I'll go ahead and I'll group it.
And would you mind switching the interpreters when you get a chance?
Sure. Okay. So this is going, wait a minute. This is going back to you, Brooke?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. Okay, so I'll go ahead and I'll select the group, and let's go ahead and bring it back over to our piece here. And this is a completed illustration. And again, all you have to do is click and drag it and bring it in there. We'll call it guitar. Okay, so I misspoke. They use the blend tool in here. So for this, and I knew that there were some exceptions, but what I need to do is I need to come back in here. And where they use the blend tool, I'm not sure. I don't remember where they used it. So I would have to go back inside here. To go up here, I'd have to go to Object, and let's see what we can do. I'll expand that and fill in stroke. So that's all done. So maybe that's what it took. So let's go back out of there. That's the only thing I could think of that maybe where they use the blend tool. So I'll select this again. And let's try again. I'm going to go ahead and click, and let's drag it back in there. And we'll name it guitar. Okay, so once again, I guess I'll have to stop here because I can't remember where the blend tool was used in here. So there are some exceptions. If I go inside it, that's a group inside there. Yeah, I can't remember. So there are exceptions to that. So you're able to use gradients, you're able to use patterns, all sorts of things. But there are certain features, and that is one, that if you've used the blend feature, that it will not turn it into a symbol until you take that aspect of it and you go to Object, and then you say that you want to expand it. And then that will do that. But I can't seem to find that element. And now notice that I'm in a group within the symbol guitar. So let's get back out of here. Oh wait, this is, okay, guitar, so let me do that. Maybe I did do it successfully. I did. So I don't know where I screwed up along the lines, but that did turn into, once I did expand it correctly, it did turn it into a symbol. Okay. Again, I encourage you because some of them are kind of hokey. They're a throwback to an older version of clip art. But in some instances, when you're putting things together quickly, or if you reuse elements of an illustration frequently, then I don't want this to be duplicated because I'm still in a symbol. There we go. Then you might want to use symbols in a library so that you can easily, without much muss or fuss, use them and not have to create them from scratch again, especially if you've forgotten where to put them. Now, another aspect of this lesson that I'm not going to cover is the libraries, okay? That in this particular instance, I have selected these colors and made them a part of a library. But what I can do is I can take these elements and I can make them a part of a library that are actually saved on the cloud with Adobe. Because we have a different kind of license, because it's an institutional license, I've never used their library features. For the fear that when my license goes away, that I would lose all of those elements. But that's something that you might want to look at in the textbook as a part of that lesson. Okay. So as I said, this would all go very quickly today, not much to cover. Okay. Do you have any questions for me before we finish today? Today will be a short recording, a short demonstration. No questions? So let me pause my recording for a minute. So the one other thing that I wanted to cover today before we're done is sort of touch on lesson 14 a little bit. And as I mentioned a moment ago, I said that it was optional, but I will give you an extra point if you want to go ahead and do that and go ahead and do the lesson. But that involves incorporating other Adobe products into Illustrator, namely Photoshop. So for example, when you combine raster with vector, I'm going to go all the way back to the first day of class, is that vector, because all of the objects are defined by mathematics, can be scaled indefinitely. But when you bring in raster images, like those that you see in Photoshop, or photographic images, then their resolution becomes really important. And if you plan on printing this with offset lithography, or even if you're using a high-end printer of any kind, then you're going to want to make sure that your images are 300 pixels per inch. If, on the other hand, you are designing for the web, then your images, the raster images that you import, need only be 72 pixels per inch. So one of the ways that you can bring in an image is that you can just simply, if you want to bring in a JPEG or a Photoshop file, it really makes no difference, but you just have to click on it. And I've got one on my screen here, and I'm dragging it in here like so. And boom, there's a big old image that I brought in here. Now that looks huge, but I would caution you that possibly, it's only 72 pixels per inch. It's not very big at all. Now, the other thing that you should be aware of is that I don't know by just dragging it in whether this is embedded or linked. And that becomes an issue when you share your files with others. So if I want to share my Illustrator file with somebody, I need to make sure if this image is linked, that is included with the file that I send them. Otherwise, they'll get an error message saying that they can't find the file, and do you want to relink it with the image, or find it with another image. So if you're unsure, the way that I would do this would be to go to File, Place. And then I can go, because the image that I just brought in is on my desktop. And that is the cabin image. So let's see if I can find that. Let me bring in a Photoshop image. I'm going to bring in one of my dog here. Here, I'll bring in a Photoshop image of my dog. So as I said, you can bring in JPEGs or Photoshop files or whatever. But you'll notice down here, before I select place, usually by default, this link is enabled or checked. If you want to embed the image as a part of your Illustrator file, which means that you can just share the Illustrator file and the raster image will go with it, just go right along with it, then that's all you need to do is deselect that. Now when I select place, okay. Now this is a big file. This is going to be big. There we go. Now I can zoom out. And this image was at 240 pixels per inch. And it's about 11 by 13 or so. So now that I brought this image in, now there's a number of things that I can do with it that we've done before. I can vectorize it if I wish. Okay, that would be an option. I can also just integrate it as a part of my design. So for example, if I wanted a clipping mask, if I wanted to create a clipping mask in here, I could do that. So let's go on layers. And here it is on the top layer here. I can go ahead and on top of that, let's go ahead and make a little circle. So I'm going to go ahead and create a nice little circle on top here. And maybe I just want to make sure that the head is visible. And I'm going to flip that around like so I can see in here. Okay. And now what I can do is I can select both of these objects, like so. Make sure that they're both selected. And now I can go to Object, Clipping Mask, Make. So there you go. So now my photograph is contained within that circle. And we can always edit or change that. Okay. So those are some of the things that you can do with raster images. But you do need to be aware of the resolution when you bring them in. The other thing is that when you create a new, create a brand new Illustrator file, and this is something that we've sort of noticed before, but really not paid much attention to. So when I select New File, and we come down here, the raster effects that you use, do you want them, again, and you need to know in advance, are you going to do this for print or are you going to do this for the web? So if it's going to be for print, the raster images should be 300 pixels per inch. If it's going to be for the web, 72. And then something in between, if you're going to email it to somebody, just to share 150. I've never used 36 pixels per inch. I'm not sure what that would even be used for.
Professor, do you mind switching the interpreters again? Thank you.
Yeah, sure. So let's go back here. So we're going back to Brooke, right? Or yes? No? Okay.
To Bernice.
Oh, no, we're not. We're going to Bernice?
Yes.
Okay. There we go. So that's something to pay attention to. The other is that when you have, vector images, and this is something that I demonstrated the first day, let's go ahead and fill that with a pattern. If you're going to turn all of this into a bitmap, which you might have to do if you're designing for the web, or if there's an editable component that you are not sure that your end user would be able to see, that if I want to turn this object or the whole illustration into a raster image, then I can always do that. I can go to Object. And I can select rasterized, but once again, you need to know what this is going to be used for. If it's going to be used for print, 300, excuse me, if it's going to be web screen resolution. And again, as soon as I do that and I zoom in, big difference. You're going to start to see all the pixels. But, you know, if it's on the web, if it's only seen on a screen and you're going to see it the actual size, it will be just fine. So those are a few more things that I thought I would add. And that's part of lesson 14. And anyway, I'm not sure what we're going to do for Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, unless you guys have something in mind. Want to make sure that we're caught up so that you could focus this final week on completing your assignments and your lessons and to make sure that they are posted. What we can do is we can double check so that if you've looked online and you don't see a grade that you're sure you posted your assignment, and we can check and take care of those things. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to pause the recording, and then I think that will be it for today. So the question was, how do you add multiple properties to a path? Multiple strokes, multiple fills, multiple effects, whatever, and keep track of them all. What you need to do is you first need to go to Window and make sure that you have the Appearance panel visible. I'm just going to pull that off and close it. Okay. So you can see that it has the last one. So I'm going to go ahead and clear appearances so there isn't anything, just so you can see. I'll start with a circle, just for the heck of it. There we go. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to create the default properties of white fill, black stroke, and you can see immediately in the appearance panel that that's what we have. So I'll go ahead and just for the heck of it, I'm going to beef up the stroke, make it maybe 10 point. 11 is just fine. And let's go ahead and with a fill selected, let's fill it with a color. Let's fill it with, I don't know, maybe a light, the bright pink. Okay. Now I want to add properties, let's say, to the fill. Well, the way I like to do that is just take the fill because I want to target it. And I'm going to go ahead and if I click on it and I drag it to new, it's going to duplicate that. So now I have two fills that are identical to one another. And just as that we've noticed in layers, these two fills are layered on top of one another. So if I want to see both, then I have to have some transparency. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to use that pattern that we've used before that already has some transparency built in. And if I want to add another fill on top of that, I'm going to go ahead and just make a copy of it. This is just the way that I like doing it because it keeps me, I'm mindful of what I'm doing. So let's go ahead and let's add this gradient on top of that. And again, the gradient has transparency. The pattern fill has transparency, and then the background. And I could layer, backgrounds because you can control the transparency for each of these, the opacity for each of these separately. I could change the opacity of this, and instead of 100%, we could make it a little bit more subtle, like so. Or if you want to target the whole path, then you select the path and then you can control the opacity for that. Or if I want to add a drop shadow to the whole path, then I would make sure that the whole path is targeted. Now, as far as applying multiple strokes, I'm just going to do the same thing. I'm going to go ahead here and I'm going to duplicate this one. I'm just going to go ahead and duplicate. And because, again, these are layered, I want the one that's in the back to be the largest. But remember with strokes, you can click here and you can put them on the inside or the outside. And right now, by default, you know, the stroke is centered. It's aligned to the center. You know, but if I put this to the outside, like so, well, that's the inside, sorry. This is the outside. There we go, we'll make it on the outside of the stroke. And then I can go ahead and let's duplicate that. Just for the heck of it, we can go ahead and duplicate. And now I'll make this one considerably smaller. I'll make it maybe a 3-point rule. And instead of black, let's make it orange. Okay. And let's see what we got going on here. Now I got to check and see where this stroke is. And see, this one is centered again, so I'm not going to see it. Or actually, it is on the outside, so I don't know why I'm not seeing it. Oh, I don't want the fill. I got to make sure that that fill is not selected. So let's see what we got going here. Let's put this on the inside just for the heck of it. Let's see. So now I have to figure out why I'm not seeing it, and I thought I had it figured out. So let me try again. I'm going to take this stroke again, and this one is on the outside. Let's take this stroke and let's place it on the inside. And let's see if we can see it. Why am I not seeing it? Let me go ahead and pause my recording. Yeah, so I'm back to where I started. I'm going to go ahead and keep this centered. So we have 11-point rule. I duplicated it just by clicking and dragging here. And this one I'm going to make a little bit smaller, make it 3-point. And again, instead of black, I'm going to make it a nice orange so we can see on top. And I think because this is targeted, this should be none. Let's go back again, make sure that this stroke is targeted. What am I doing here? Nope, that put it on the center. So the outside, the inside. So let's put this centered just so we can make sure that we can see. Oh, this is on the outside. So let's try that again. Let's put this back in the center again. Now let's see if we see it. And we don't. We don't. So I'm going to pause again. I'm not sure what I'm doing wrong. So the reason that this isn't taking place is that I did not have this selected. So I need to make sure that as I'm making changes that the path is selected. If it's not, remember it holds on to the previous properties that I had. So let's go back again and let's just so that I can see what I'm doing here. Instead of that being there, I'm going to make this centered. There we go. And then let's take this stroke and let's make this one centered as well. And now we should be able to see it. And I can't see the darn thing. Wow, wow, wow.
Would you mind switching the interpreters?
Okay, hold on. I'm going to pause. Yeah, so I had added a stroke above everything and not even noticed it. So here's my 3-point stroke, and here's one beneath it. I'll make black. And it's not visible because it's only 1 point. But if I go ahead and I increase the size of it, now it's working. There we go. So here's a nice big fat 20-point stroke. And then if I wanted one in between these, I could do that as well. So let me go ahead and duplicate that. And now let's make this one, make it a, I don't know, 7-point stroke. And instead of black, let's make it pink. No, that's not a good color. How about yellow? There we go. That will work better. So now you can see I have three strokes applied to a single path, and I have 3 fills applied to a path. And I've modified each individually, and if I want to modify everything as a whole, so if I wanted to add a drop shadow to the entire path, I could do that. So if I select the whole path, and I click down here for effect, and I can select stylize, and I can select drop shadow, and we'll just use the default settings. Now it applies it to that. But if I wanted to apply a drop shadow or a special effect to a particular path, I could do that. So for example, let's let me get rid of some of these so I can go back again. I'm going to get rid of this stroke, the 10.1, and I'm going to get rid of the 7.1 just for the heck of it for right now. So I just have this. So if I just target this stroke itself, one of the things that I wanted to show you under effects the other day that I didn't is that there's some really nice ones under distort and transform. So for example, we could go ahead and we could use, let's see. Hold on here. Let me go back again. Stylize, drop shadow. Oh, I wanted to use Scribble. That's the one that I like. That's under Stylize. So now if I look at that, you'll notice that I'm adding just to the outline. I'm adding this Scribble effect. And look at when the options pop up. All these, do you want this to be centered? You want it to be on the inside or the outside? You want, strong variation. In the Scribble, you want to vary the stroke width, you want to vary the curviness, and on and on and on. You can get some really, really fun effects. So let me clear the appearance for the whole path and show you another one. Now that I'm kind of on this, I'm going to take away the whole appearance. Now I'm just going to take the fill and I'm going to apply an orangey fill to it. And I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to apply that Scribble effect once again. So if I go to Effect, Stylize, and I select Scribble, now you can play with this. So what you're going to do is you're going to get kind of a hand-drawn appearance. So let's change the variation a little bit. Let's vary the stroke width just a little bit. No, we don't want to do that because that gets too fat very quickly. How about the curviness? How about the variation? How about the spacing? And how about the variation? So before you know it, you've created, using just a solid fill, something that looks like you've taken a pen, a marker, and filled it with that space. And you can apply that to the entire path, or you can apply it to just a fill, or just a stroke. And again, if you have the appearance panel, then you can target each of them independently of one another. So I like this a lot. It's for lazy people like myself. And instead of, going ahead and drawing something and making it look kind of random or spontaneous, I can use the tools in Illustrator to give me kind of a similar effect, so that it looks somewhat spontaneous by using something like that, like Scribble. Like I said, before, we've covered a lot in the past 5 weeks. But if you go under Effect and you look at some of these filters, You know, some of them will do absolutely nothing, especially Photoshop filters applied to a vector object. But some of these, you know, the feather will give us kind of a slight blurring effect. The glow effects, you know, rounded corners, you really don't need to use anymore since you can do that automatically. Drop shadows are used a lot. The distort and transform would be another one. You know, if you want to roughen or pucker and bloat, you know, that would do the same thing. So it gives us some nice options here. You know, if I go ahead and I roughen that shape, let's see what it does just for the heck of it. There you go. So it's roughening the whole form. It's making it look really kind of hand-drawn. And that's corner. If I want it smooth, that would do that. You know, the amount of detail or no detail. And again, every time I apply these, you know, the path, and the path is selected, that, you know, oftentimes that these should be, especially when I look here, under the fill, that you can see that scribble and roughen have been applied. So if I turn off roughen, I get my scribble. If I turn off scribble, I get the solid fill. So all of these, that's why I think the appearance panel, I think it's sort of underrated. It should be probably one of the strongest and most important panels that you have up all the time. Okay. We've probably gone on a bit longer than I thought I would today. So if there aren't any more questions, then we'll go ahead and we'll call it quits for today. And so all of you, if you don't have any more questions, you're free to go. And remember, just please, please, please make sure that you upload all of your files. The sooner the better. And we really don't have much more to cover in the next few days. In fact, I'll be probably taking on more questions and answers than, and giving you answers than demonstrating anything out of the book. So if you have a question about a project that the project that you're working on, or maybe something that you've already worked on that you'd like to revise, let me know and we can tackle that during my webinar here. And I can record it and make it available for others as well. Okay. Okay. So if we're all done, then I'll see you tomorrow. And have a nice week, a nice afternoon, and we'll wrap up this semester.